Well, with a new screwdriver comes new merch, new toy. And yes, I jumped on this as soon as I was able to. So naturally, we're going to take a look at it. And I have not done an unboxing in a long time. So let's cut this thing loose, first of all. Whoop. All right. So I'm going to be sort of taking a closer look at it visually, seeing what I think, but also just kind of judging it as, you know, a toy, because that's ultimately what I have in my hand. All right. There's a little thing there. Is there anything? There's like this whole practically empty bit of the box. Is there anything in there? No. God, that's weird packaging. Like this whole bit here that looks like it might have, I don't know, instructions or something in it. There's just nothing. That's just empty. That's weird. I don't understand packaging, especially toy packaging, a lot of the time. But here we go. I think some people had noted elsewhere that the handle aspect of it is actually pretty short. So like for comparison, there we go. And I think that has to do with where the black is compared to 11's. So 11 has a lot more down here because your fingers with an indent, they kind of gravitate towards there, although I think it's a different set of fingers in this case. On Smith's, on 11's, your fingers gravitate towards the black. Here, I think your fingers will still gravitate towards the black, but it's going in my case, it's the ring finger that is gravitating towards there. Maybe if I were to shift grip, maybe the middle finger, holding it with the index finger there the way I do with this, like that, like I feel like it's missing, but it does sort of take an adjusted grip there. Whoa. That is an interesting sound. That does seem to be the only sound it has. I'm just going to check that. Replacing the batteries. Lights in effect. Doesn't mention multiple sounds. That is kind of interesting that there's only the one, because a lot of the others... Hang on. Where's the dang... This was like a replacement one. I know my old one better. Let me grab another one. It's just, you know. There's 4 different sounds on the old 10th Doctor. I think my batteries are... There we go. Can I get the other one to go? Yeah, there's there's multiple sounds on most of the other ones. Not all the other ones, like River Songs one. That only had the one, but, you know, 13's. So it's odd to me that this only seems to have the one, at least so far. I will be curious to see if it changes when we... Ooh. Okay. Those... Oh, there we go. You gotta do it all the way up. So I had done it like part of the way up and it had kind of come loose, but you gotta do it all the way up to get it fully spring open. It doesn't lock in place. That's a little disappointing. So again, to go back to 11's, it has a spring. So once it's up here, you have to go out of your way to push it back down. This, honestly, feels a little flimsier, and like possibly with time and loosening, it'll just like start to slide back down. I kind of feel like I need to keep my thumb under it to keep it kind of open, which like is doable. These are loose. Yeah, I think that's the bigger issue, is that I don't know. Like these are quite loose unless I am pressing this up with additional pressure. Now, there's still a little looseness on some of these, but not nearly as much. That one is looser than the rest, so that might be a little bit of a fluke. All right, so sound still works. We've got bits lower down that'll still light up. So that's kind of cool that, you know, we have that bit lighting up and the tip, but we open it up and we get more in the middle and we get dots down here. And that's kind of cool. I like that. I'm still a little bit disappointed that it appears to, only be the one sound. Does that? Okay. So that's just like a fidget toy. That is kind of nice, though. That's actually, that's something that I like in a sonic screwdriver, if I can get it, like a sense of adjusting settings. Because, like, you think back to 9 and 10, and they would talk about different settings, even like name them in specific. Like 9 in the Dr. Dance's listed a very specific setting to mend barbed wire. And I always kind of liked that because it created this image in my head of the doctor just either while in transit or just bored sometimes, sitting in the TARDIS just fiddling and adding new functions, even if he has no idea, he or she or they have no idea when they would ever need that. Like, did the doctor ever think they were going to need to mend barbed wire? No, but they figure out how to do it and like, oh, I'll add that as a function. Sure, maybe it'll come in handy. So like the fact that it has this very tactile kind of dial, I actually really like because it kind of brings back that idea of adjustments and settings. Because starting with Matt Smith's doctor, there was like, they flat out said like a neurological interface or a telepathic interface, basically just thinking point, which like, it's fine, it functions, but I like the tactileness of thinking you need to, like, to use the thing properly, you need to know what the settings are and what they do, which makes it something that the doctor can use, and if preset to the right thing or instructed to the companion, they could use, but someone else could pick it up randomly and they wouldn't know what the hell they're doing with it. I just like that as an idea. And the show overall has kind of moved away from that in general. Well, I say moved away. It didn't really come up with 13's. And 13 used hers almost exclusively as a scanner, basically to and get new information on a thing, which I actually think is one of the better overall uses. I didn't love that she very commonly did this big exaggerated motion to aim it. I didn't love that, but like as far as the actual use, I actually liked how 13 used her sonic screwdriver quite a bit because it was much more limited in scope in terms of what it was doing. And generally it was just a way for her to gather information that she needs, but isn't worth tying up story time for her to figure out or acquire some other way. Like, she just needs to know what this machine does, and this isn't the kind of villain who's going to monologue about it, or the villain isn't present. Okay, now she knows what it does. She still has to solve the problem of what to do about it or stop it or whatever. But like, I liked the use of this a fair bit, even though it didn't bring back the sort of settings. And that doesn't even necessarily mean they're gonna bring back the idea of specific settings, but it's tactile and it feeds into that notion, so I kind of like it on principle. But, ooh, here we go. All right, so if we do multiple clicks, we can get other effects. So hold on. That's our standard. 2 is the same one. Okay. Ooh, so 3 is kind of like a breaking up, but it starts out the same. So, and then 4. Okay, how many we got? 5? Ooh, and it kind of flashes a little. Okay. I'm liking the variety now. 6. I think that's the same. So 5 seems to be doing the same as 6. Let me just try 7. That's kind of pulsing. That's a little different. Like, the variation isn't immense. It seems to largely be based, rather than it's like doing a different thing, it's like feeling like it's the same core sound, but just sort of shifting it a little bit, like to sound like something might be trying to jam it, or it's having trouble with a thing, or something like that, which is kind of neat. So, like, for comparison, Nope, not that. Not that. This one. Does this still work? Okay, so like this is a sonic screwdriver that is sort of a build it yourself. It comes with various pieces and you can assemble it however you want. This is the configuration I like. So batteries are going on this, but like you can hear this has a flat out wider variety of sounds. Whereas this, it's pretty much all based off the same core foundation. It's just doing different things. So rather than being flat out different sounds, it's the same sound, but it's kind of like, as I said, sounding like it's getting interrupted, sound like it's having trouble with a thing, or it's encountered something that it doesn't know what to do with. And I kind of like that. So like, if I didn't have something like the one I just showed you that had just a flat out wider variety of sounds that are just different, then I might say that I would have preferred that this had that. But since I've already got that, and 12, when the batteries are fresh, you know, kind of does that to a certain degree. I actually quite like that the way that this shakes it up is by varying the specifics of how the sound is implemented, but it's all the same sound. So it feels less like the sonic itself is doing a different thing rather than the way the thing that it does is interacting with something is a little bit different, if that makes sense. Because like some of the sounds on the one that I, excuse me, on the one that I showed you are so varied that it's like, okay, well, that's clearly a completely different function. I kind of like this whole thing. And then it blinks and yeah. So a little bit mixed. I don't like that how flimsy this bit especially is. I don't like the sense that even the ones that are slightly more secure, I have to keep putting pressure upward on this. Because like I'm someone who I can lose track of how much pressure I'm gonna put on that. So I'm gonna be paranoid that I'm gonna like push too hard and break something. So that's not great for me personally. The grip, yeah, I'd say that's the black settles on the ring and that feels pretty good. Yeah, the variety of sounds I've warmed to. It took me a minute to realize that it even was different sounds because initially they kind of sounded the same. Yeah, hopefully you're picking it up. Yeah, it starts out normal, but then there's the crackling and then so the more I think about it, the more I like the way the sound is implemented on this and especially the variety of it. So my main complaints and like how I feel about the design, because I've largely just talked about how it feels to mess with and I love that. But how I feel about the design compared to others might be partially dependent long-term on how this plays out with how it gets used by the 14th Doctor by David Tennant. Now, this is where I have to cop to the fact that if you have not already figured this out, I received this and am recording this video months ahead of the specials airing. However, if the strikes have not ended prior to the airing of those, you might not see this from me until afterwards. So this is why I'm talking about, like, I don't know what happens in the specials, because at time of recording, I don't. But I'll be curious to see if, like, the fact that this feels cobbled together from pieces of other Doctor's stuff, like it's a mix of 9 and 10 and 11, and then this bit feels a bit more 10, and then this bottom bit is fairly 11, and then the way these things splay out, it's kind of 11, but like this shape here feels quite 12. So I'll be curious to see if the fact that this kind of feels like an amalgam actually comes up and actually matters and like has any story reason. If not, then my opinion on this is it's a little bit derivative just because it kind of feels like the other ones just mated and had a child, or bits of them were taken apart and put together. And there isn't a lot that feels truly unique to it that doesn't feel like it's largely taken from something else. I would say the main thing that feels different versus the others is this sort of inner core. But even that is ultimately kind of reminiscent of 13. Now, the way it's presented is different because here it seems like it's not fully properly sealed and you see through a little bit, whereas this, it's more just kind of an exposed core as a matter of design. But even that kind of visible inner glowing core isn't a new idea. And that's like not the end of the world, but I will say that if it turns out that this is just the screwdriver, and yeah, this is it, we're not going to say that it's an amalgam of anything, this is just what it is, I'll be a little bit disappointed by the lack of creativity in terms of a truly new implement and function or even design element to it. However, I am holding out judgment on that because I think it's possible that might get addressed, whether as a quickly said piece of side dialogue or as a plot point. I don't know. There's 3 specials. But in any case, like, I like a lot of the things going on with this. It is a little flimsy, but overall, I look forward to making use of this. So there's my thoughts on the toy version of the sonic screwdriver and a little bit my thoughts, I guess, on the overall design. But yeah, what do you think of this thing? Oh, it's even got the seam in the black bit, which is something it's even got that seam right there. Huh. That is interesting. So it really does properly feel like an amalgam. Anyways, what are your thoughts on this? Whatever they are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills and is how I am able to get stuff like this and be able to talk about it at all, as well as, clothe and feed my child. But in any case, don't worry too much about that. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can just come on back next time you need a break. Time to thank some patrons, and this time I'm going to say their names as if I'm greeting them, welcoming them to a party. Robin Moore, Zuman Lafula, Goddess Elida, Turok, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Ruth, Gozer the Gozerian, Oliver B, Solitary Pictures, Ulrich Bogdan, Melinda Walters, Jen, Auntie Kate 808, Becky Sparks, Phenobulox the Poodle, Robin Powell, T Love, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Rosalind Bennett. Have fun tonight, and thank you for your support. I don't know why I decided to do that this time, but I don't know. I'm having fun.